Flexbox is basically a modern layout mode in CSS3. We assign flex to the display property, just like we have display block, display inline block, display none. We also have display flex, and it replaces floats. It's much more elegant to work with. We can align items both horizontal and vertical, and flex items can also be reordered via CSS. So we can actually reorder the way that our items are laid out without having to change the markup, without having to change the HTML. So let's take a quick look at how it works, and I'm going to show you all of this, so don't worry about it. But just really quickly, if we assign display flex to a container div or any container element, it creates a flex container. Okay, and we can look at this image here. So let's say that these two boxes are divs inside of a div that we said display flex. Okay, so we have a flex container, and then it makes all direct elements flex items. Okay, so each div or list item, it could be any element at all. Each thing inside that flex container is going to be a flex item, and it's going to actually align horizontal in a row by default. So simply putting display flex is going to make all the child elements just automatically align horizontally. So basically like what floats do. But we can also do flex direction column, which will align them this way. Okay, that'll align them vertically. Now we have a cross axis which goes up and down, and we have a main axis that goes this way. And there's different CSS properties we can use to align our flex items. So here's some of those properties. So we have justify content, which will align along the main axis, so basically horizontal along this main axis. We have align items, which will align items on the cross axis, so this way, and then align content, which will align when there's extra space in the cross axis. Basically, if we have multiple rows of flex items, it'll align those. And I know that's confusing just saying it, but I will show you and give you examples of all of these. Alright guys, so now we're going to jump into Flexbox, and if you don't understand everything in this first video here, don't worry about it. We're going to be building an entire project, an entire website using Flex, so things are going to come to you as we go. But I'm just going to use the CSS sandbox that we've been using. I'm going to create a file called 16 underscore flex underscore basics.html. Okay, and we'll put in our boilerplate. For our title, we'll say Flex Basics, and let's put in our style tags. Now for the body, I'm going to have a div. I'm just going to give it an ID of container, and then let's do a div with the class of item. We're going to have a couple of these. So for the content inside the item, I want to have an H3. Okay, we're just using Emmet here, and we're going to say item money sign, which will be an incremented number. And then I think that's it. So let's go ahead and hit, actually we want to do times 3 and then tab or enter, and it will give us 3 divs, class item, and then H3s. So if I save this and we take a look, let's open with live server. You'll see we just have our divs here. And I just want to style the items. So for class item, let's just say background light gray. We'll do a border of light gray, and padding, we'll say 1 rem. Let's text align to the center, and that should be good. And now we have some styling for each one here. Now remember what I said, if we say display flex for this item here, for this element, it becomes a flex container, and then everything, all the direct children, which are these divs, are going to become flex items, which we can lay out horizontally or vertically in a column. So let's take that container and let's add a display property with a value of flex, and as soon as I save, notice what happens. They get aligned horizontally. Okay, so basically doing what like a float does with just this one line. And it doesn't matter if these don't have classes. It doesn't matter if these are divs or list elements or I'm sorry, list items. It doesn't matter. Anything that's a direct child of this flex item, or this flex container, I should say, is a flex item and will automatically get put into a row. Now, we can have flex items go this way in a column by setting flex direction to column, and if I save that, now it goes back to a column, and it's still a Flexbox. We can still use the alignment classes and stuff that I'm going to show you in the next video, but I want to keep this a row, so I'm just going to comment that out, and I'm going to put this to row, which is basically the same thing as not putting it at all, because row is default. Oh, actually, I want to show you we can also do row reverse. And if I save that, notice that now 3 is the first one, and they also get aligned over here. And then, yes, you can do row reverse as well, but we're going to stick to row. Now, we can set specific widths to these if we want using flex basis. In fact, we're going to do that in the next video. But for the most part, you're going to want your horizontal items to go all the way across, okay, regardless of which one takes up whatever amount of space. You want them to go all the way across their container, which in our case is the whole browser window. So what I'm going to do is set on the item here, I'm going to set flex 1 and save. Okay, and what that's going to do is it's going to make them all equal, and it doesn't matter how I size the browser, they're always going to be equal. So you can see how easy this is. After doing the floats, remember we did the float, we did the width, whatever, I think we did like 32.3%, and then we had to set the box sizing so that the width, the padding didn't add to the width. We had to clear them, and it's just a pain. The height, you have to add a height when you do the floats. This makes things so much easier, and I know that it's another thing to learn, but once you start using flex in the grid, you don't use float. Aside from this course, just to teach you guys, I haven't used float in years. So let's say we wanted to do like a main area and a sidebar. We didn't want them to be all equal. So let's actually just take 2 of them, and even if we have 2, if they're set to flex 1, they're going to be equal. But what I'll do is I'll take the first one, which I could give a custom class if I wanted to, but what I'm going to do is use the pseudo selector first child. So I'm going to say item colon first child, and that's going to select the first item, and I'm going to set that flex property to 2. Okay, so this first one has a flex of 2, and the second one has a flex of 1. So let's save that, and now you'll see that this has more space. Okay, so easy way to set up a main area and a sidebar, and it's going to stay like that no matter what. Okay, if we wanted it to be even bigger, we could say flex 3 and save, and it gets even bigger. Okay, but I'm going to put this, let's just put this back to 1. Yeah, we'll just do that. So let's see, what else do I want to show you guys in this video. If we wanted some margin, because right now you can see they're basically stuck to each other, so we could add margin to the item as well. So if I say margin, let's do 0.75 rem and save, and we get our margin. Let's put the third one back. Okay, so no matter what, and now I can keep bringing in more. Let's put, look at that, and it's just, everything just works. It just aligns how it should. Now we do have a property called flex wrap, because once you hit 12, it's going to do one of 2 things. It's going to go off the screen, and you'll have a scroll bar, or it'll wrap onto the next line. So what do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's do 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and let's save. So notice now we have a scroll bar because it's not going to put more than 12 on the screen. But if we wanted to wrap onto the next line, we could go to our container, and we could add a property of flex wrap, and we could set that to wrap. Okay, so we have no wrap, we have wrap reverse, which is just reverse them, and save, and now you can see they go on to the next line. All right, so, and you can see, so it's pretty cool. And think of if we did like an image gallery or something, you know, it makes things much easier than having to float these, clear them, deal with the heights, deal with, you know, all the crap that goes into floating, the widths. So yeah, it makes things much easier. So another thing that we can do, I'm trying to think of all the properties I want to display here. We have Flex Flow, which is basically a shortcut for the direction and the wrap. Okay, so instead of putting both of these, we could do Flex Flow, and we could say we want a row and we want it to wrap. So that's the same as these two. So if I comment these two out and save, we get the same thing. If I wanted to change this to, let's say, no wrap and save, now you can see there's no wrap. All right, but I personally don't usually use Flex Flow. I don't usually use wrap because I don't have, in most cases, I won't have more than 12 flex items. All right, so let's see, I think that's it. Yeah, so in the next video, I'm going to show you how we can work with the alignment properties like justify content, align items, and stuff like that, which are very useful if you know you don't have them spanning across the whole parent container. All right, so we'll get into alignment next. Okay, so we went over the basics of Flexbox. We add display flex to a container, and then all of its immediate children get turned into flex items, and we can align them horizontally or in a column, however we want. And there's also alignment classes we can use, so justification, alignment, and so on. So to display this, I'm going to create a new file called 17_flex_align.html. Put our boilerplate in, and let's change the title to flex align. And we'll put in our style tags. Oops. And in the body, I want the same thing. I just want 3 divs, but I want them to have a class of item and then also their own custom class. So item 1, 2, and 3. So let's use Emmet here. We'll do class item, also class item dash, and I want it to increment 1, 2, 3. So we'll use a money sign here. And then for the content inside, we use curly braces. We'll put an H3 inside each, H3 inside each one, and we'll just say item and then an incremental number, so money sign, and we'll do this 3 times. So times 3, and there we go. And one thing I forgot to do was add a container. So we want to grab all these and Shift or Option and hit the up arrow, and you can just bring it right up. Okay, so let's open this in Live Server, and I just want to add some general styling to the items. So let's do that real quick. So I'm actually going to paste it in. It's the same styling we had: the gray background, the border, padding, alignment, and so on. And then I'm also going to add. Let's do a margin of, let's say, 0.5 rem. Okay, now in order for these to be flex items, of course, we need to add to the container, we need to add display flex. So we'll save that, and again, automatically it's going to align horizontal into a row. Now let's say that we don't want to just use flex 1, flex 2, we don't want it to go all the way across, we want to give these custom widths. So basically what we can do is we could use width. I'm just going to make them all the same, but we could use width like this and say 300 pixels. So now each one is 300 pixels, but there's another property that we can use with flex items called flex basis, which will also give it a width of 300 pixels, so basically does the same thing. All right, now let's start looking at alignment classes. So I want to align these on the the horizontal axis right here. So for that, we use justify content. And these alignment classes, they're going to go, not classes, but properties, they're going to go on the container. So let's say justify dash content, and there's a lot of different values for this. The default is going to be flex start, which is basically aligned to the right here. Let's actually make this to these 200 pixels. Okay, so now they're 200 pixels. So flex start is basically aligning them all to the right. I'm sorry, the left. And then we have flex end if we want to align to the right. Okay, you can see they all got pushed over. Another value we have is center, so we can align them all to the center. Now we have some really cool values that we can use as well. Whoops, just want to close that up. So we have space around. If we do that, what that's going to do is it's going to divide the space around each one. So you can see over here, and then we have the space around the first one, around the second one, and around the third one. Another one we have is space between, which is similar, except it's not on the edge. The remaining space is going to go in between like that. We also have space evenly. And if we save that, you'll see now it's just even on all sides. So really, really cool, these alignment properties. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in here inside of a comment all the different options just so you have them, so you know, in case you need to come back to this. All right, now let's take a look at align items, which is actually going to align it this way. Now, in order for this to work, you're going to have to set a height on your container. Now, for the container, I'm going to give it a background color just so we can see it. So I'm going to say background, and let's do, we'll do 555 and save. So right now, it just wraps around the content, but let's give this container a height. Okay, so I'm going to say height, and we'll do 600 pixels and save. Okay, now the default for this is going to be stretch, okay, for align items. So let's say align items, and if we say stretch and save, you'll see that it's the same thing. Basically, they're going to just stretch all the way down. Now we also have flex start and flex end. So if we do flex start, you'll see that they're just going to align up here. If we do flex end, they're going to go to the bottom. If we do center, they're going to go right in the center. So you can see how easy aligning this stuff is. We don't have to judge and do like a padding top and have it be different pertaining to the browser height. Like, it's always going to be in the center. So let's look at some other ones. We also have, actually those, yeah, I think the only other one we have is baseline, which is just the normal. I'm not sure the difference between baseline and flex start actually, but those are the values. I'm going to paste those in, and let's just put a comment here and say justify content is when we align items horizontal, and then align items is when we align items vertical. Okay, and I should put in here that there must be a height. Okay, so next one I'm going to show you is align content, and this aligns vertical when there's extra space. So basically, if they wrap, what I'm going to do is just copy this down a bunch. I'll get rid of it after, but let's save that and let's make it wrap. So remember, we have flex dash wrap, and we'll set it to wrap. Actually, I think that's too much for the 600 pixel container for the height. Yeah, so we'll do that. So actually, we'll take off one more, so we just have 2 rows. So align content is going to deal with how these are aligned vertically. So let's go right here and say align dash content, and let's set it to flex start. Okay, so if we save that, you'll see that now that we don't have that giant space in between. Okay, if we want to do flex end, save, it's going to move all of them to the bottom. If we do center, they're going to go to the center. If we do space around, it'll do space around, which I think is the default, but we also have space between. Save that, and then they're just gonna go at the top. So yeah, this has to do with having more than one row. So I'm gonna put a comment here, and let's say align items vertical where there's extra space, and then I'm gonna paste the options in here. So hopefully this makes sense. Now we can also add alignment properties to individual items. So what I'm going to do is go back to having just 3, and let's say we want the second one to be down here. We want to keep these 2 up here but have the middle one down. So what we can do is that has a class of item 2. Yeah, we'll do item 2. And then let's put a comment, and we'll say align single item vertical. So this is going to be align self. Okay, so align self, and let's do flex end. Save it, take a look, and now this one, item 2, is now aligned flex end. Okay, we can do center if we want. And now it's in the center. So I'm just going to paste in the options for align self. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you is the order. We can change up the order here without having to change the markup, which is pretty powerful, because your markup, you want it to be very semantic and you want it to be orderly, but you might want it displayed differently in the browser. So instead of having to move things around here, we can simply use the order property. So what I'm going to do is say, let's do item 1, and we already have item 2 here, and then let's do item 3, and for item 3 let's do order 1. Item 1 will do order 3, and item 2 let's do order 2. So basically it should be 3, 2, 1. So let's save, and now if we check it out, we have item 3 first, 2, and then 1, and we didn't do anything in the markup. Okay, we just did it all within CSS. So that's flex order. I'm sorry, just order. All right, so I think that we've covered pretty much the basics, the core of Flexbox, and if you're still confused, don't worry about it. Next, we're going to jump into a pretty cool project where we're going to be using Flex quite a bit. All right, so I'll see you in the project.